Missing children, what happened? When I was 16, I got into a fight with my mother about how to properly load dishes into a dishwasher. Actually, she yelled a lot and I failed to react. They were dishes, who cares? At that point in my life, she was running her own business and my father was working full time. So all of the chores in the house were being done by me personally anyway, and at that point I had been loading the dishwasher incorrectly for the better part of 6 years and felt it didn't matter if she thought it was wrong now. Well, I decided that telling her that was the way to end the argument. As you can probably predict, it did not. She threw me out of the house. In typical teenage fashion, I told her if she threw me out then I wasn't coming back. At that point she had escalated to white-hot rage and said something like, "We don't want you here anyway." Well, that was all I needed, and really she should have been paying better attention to me. See, I had gotten a job as soon as I had turned 14 and I had purchased my own car. I had been buying my own clothes and things for years with money from that job. I left and could honestly say that I hadn't taken anything from the house that I hadn't personally paid for. To that end, I left my cell phone on the table. They had no way to get in contact. So, hours later when my mother's anger faded and she realized that she had just thrown her 16-year-old child into the streets over the dishes, she called the police. Well, the police showed up and heard her out. They put out the details on my car to try and find me, but they told her that since I had a car and clothes and had my own bank account and I had been gone for hours, there was no guarantee that I was even in the state anymore. They really only started looking so soon as a favor to my mother. They weren't required to look at all since it was clear that I was a runaway that had left under my own power. My father came home from work and was bewildered by all the chaos. I wish I could have seen his face. After 48 hours they had me declared missing, which apparently made my profile available to other states and such. And that was how they found me. 2 weeks later, 18 hours away, I was sitting on the hood of my car eating ice cream and filling out a job application. An officer noticed I was illegally parked and casually scanned my plates while he approached to ask me to move. I don't think he was going to give me a ticket. It was just a reflexive action. I came up as a missing kid and he stopped mid-question and sort of stutters. You should call your mother." I nodded agreeably and he gave me his cell phone. I dialed my mother's number from heart and she picked up. As soon as I identified myself, she turning into a screaming rage monster of hatred and insults. I casually put the phone on speaker for the officer to hear, and his eyes widened. She didn't stop to take a breath and let me get a word in, so I hung up on her. I told the officer that I was fine where I was and since it had already escalated to this point I was going to hold out for an apology, or divine intervention. He sort of patted my shoulder and made sure I had someplace warm to sleep at night. 2 days later my dad showed up and got me. The officer had called the department that the missing persons report originated from and gotten my father's contact details and told him that if the situation was left to my mother to resolve, they would never see me again. I agreed that it was for the best.